Hey, welcome to GoCast. Today we are hosting James Cairns. He is IT director at Bow Valley College. He is also in charge of B-Side Calgary, which is growing and growing each year. It's a real success. So enjoy the GoCast. Hey, James, welcome to GoCast.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's a great pleasure to talk to you today. If you don't mind, just starting by introducing yourself, who you are, what you do, where you're from, what you like, what you don't like, and anything that matters to that conversation.
For sure. Yeah. So, James Cairns, I'm the Associate Director of IT Security at Bow Valley College up in Calgary, Alberta. I also have the distinct pleasure of being able to support and help lead the B-Sides Calgary Security Foundation as well. So, I've been in the security space for about 6-7 years in that, and really grown in that time and learned, and the community's changed and adapted in that time. It's been really interesting to see that. Interesting enough, even though I'm B-Sides Calgary and my employer's up in Calgary, I actually reside out of Medicine Alberta. So I have been doing the remote side of work since before it was even a buzzword. So
Nice.
That's kind of a bit of my claim to fame.
Yeah, the remote buzzword. Can you tell us how you started in cyber? What's the switch? You were doing XYZ and then all of a sudden cyber?
Yeah, well, it was interesting. So I've been with the same organization for many years, but I actually had a bit of a stint in there where I was moved overseas, and there was a gentleman that was actually worked for the organization. I was acting as a developer at that time, and he would come into these meetings and that, and social times with the organization, and he would talk about how he was doing pen testing, what he found, and he was always the bane of everyone's existence because he was always finding the bugs and always finding the things that were wrong essentially. And it was interesting for me because it was the side of things that I hadn't seen before. And so that kind of piqued for me the interest in that. When I came back to the organization I'm with, I was doing development and ERP system and configuration, and then kind of moved to database admin and sysops. But there's always these little pieces of things that would always kind of bring me back to it, like talking about SQL injection and being a database administrator. That was very interesting for me and something that was really apparent. As I was doing more sysops and sysadmin work, I was finding that there's more and more interest that I had in, like, how do we secure these? For me, vulnerability management was kind of my first foray really into cybersecurity. And so for me, it was neat to see, okay, I have this list of these 10 things I can go and fix. And then I can go reassess and say, oh, okay, yeah, I fixed 8 out of these 10 and do more research on what this means. And so to me, that was kind of interesting, kind of segueing into that. So doing security fairly heavily for 3 years, even prior to being officially in a cybersecurity role, but basically kind of just molded me into that. And the really interesting part for me too was that it was, even though I'm going to say cybersecurity was somewhat burgeoning at that point, there was still no linear path into it. A lot of people would assume you'd be a network engineer and then move into cybersecurity. And for me, that definitely wasn't the route. So it was kind of this interesting, movement into that. And so stepping back from that, I see that now more with students I interact with or the community I interact with as well.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely interesting the way you shifted in the cybersecurity world. And I mean, now you're hosting B-Side Calgary, which is, I mean, absolutely amazing. How does that happen?
So yeah, back in 19, the pre-existing organizing committee had started to look at new ways of just bringing some additional life. They'd done a couple times where they'd run B-Sides Calgary in Calgary, and they wanted to just have someone potentially come in a bit different, a bit fresh lens on it. And so they actually stayed on to be support with the board with our organizing committee and that. So it was nice to be able to take kind of the lens of stewardship from what they had and then kind of see what else we could do with it. So at that time, 2019, we came around. I said yes, and then I joke that was my 4th child, because then it becomes something that you just live and grow, and you talk it. You talk it at the kitchen table. You talk it,
of course,
before you go to bed at night. It's something that's always there, right? So that's really became the life that way, and so from since then we've been able to have sessions in 2020, 2021, 22, 23, and now in 2025. So it's grown from about 250 people to we're hoping to get up to 900 people this year.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Huge growth. That's awesome. 900 people. And Calgary is such a nice city. I mean, do you feel like it's people from Calgary or people are flying around? What's the proportion of people in like local versus visitors?
Yeah, it was interesting. So like when 2020 and 2021 hit, everything was of course virtual, and we saw about probably about 25 to 30% of our presenters were international, and actually people that were attending were international. I do know that even in the last couple of years where we have had things primarily on site, we've had people from as far away as like the UAE, the UK, and we're expecting people from the UK, from the United States, and that this year as well. So we do get a lot of, we probably, it's not as big in numbers, but we do have a fairly broad reach. We do know that there's a lot in country too. We have a lot of people that will fly out of Toronto and Ottawa and
Yeah.
Vancouver to come attend and really be part of that bigger community.
Well, that's great to hear. And what the because there's always a trend or a bubble. Right now, of course, it's AI. But if you look at your speaker roster, is there any trend that you can see in that, or it's like a mix? Or
There's a fairly good mix. It's actually what's really interesting this year is there's not many AI specific talks. There's probably going to be a lot with AI baked in and talking about this is how this, interacts,
yeah.
or this is the latest trends within this area, but nothing like specific to AI. I think people maybe were almost a bit frustrated with hearing AI so much that they decided not to talk about that.
Well, that's
Uh,
really true.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk. So it's interesting. We have, I think, 17 new to speaking period presenters this year, which is pretty amazing. It's being able to give them that first chance for that. But we have everything from like robots to OT, IT, ICS. We have a lot. We actually have talking about quantum computing,
Oh,
quantum
nice.
readiness. Like, so we get
Yeah.
pretty much every kind of the whole gamut. We have people talking about governance, risk, and compliance, and how to build your brand, how to start your career in cybersecurity. So it's really kind of something for everyone.
Oh, that's great. I'm a big fan of the B-side format where it's more casual, if you will. And, the way it started with Jack Daniels a long time ago being, the refused people to the big conference. It's really great. And so you're organizing that, you're working in cyber, living in that event as well. It's a lot, I guess. What would you say yourself as, I mean, we talked about AI buzzword and stuff, but what's the trend that you're seeing in the market right now evolving because I guess of that AI and where it's going? What's your take on that?
Well, I think there's interest. I think there's kind of two things happening because there is AI and people are understanding how to use AI both in their operations as well as seeing this being used in adversarial attacks. I'm going to say that to me, I see almost there's some places where there's kind of renewed vigor and people are like, oh yes, I can do this. This is new tools, new skill set. But I'm also kind of seeing people with the looking the other way where they're just tired, right? Like they come into this and whatever's going on, it's so what's another thing? It's just another thing on the horizon to look at, and they've been in a role or in a leadership position for several years and trying to weather the storms, and these storms don't seem to quit. So I think that, they're seeing this increased prevalence of these kind of threats
Yeah.
that are coming. I think they're trying to fight the good fight, and trying to get this, they're getting potentially small wins here and there, but it's something that they definitely need to be encouraged in that. And so I'm hoping events like B-Sides Calgary kind of brings along that community and say, hey, we're in the trenches with you. We know that this is tough. So, we're here beside you just to let you know, you're not fighting this alone, and let's do what we
Yeah.
can as a community.
Agreed. And I mean, the bad guys and the adversary are fighting together against us, right? So we need
That's
to
right.
come
Absolutely. Yeah.
together and defend ourselves. And they're well organized, right? So we can, I think there's no limitation on how organized we can be together through that community. So you mentioned OT. I think it's a fascinating topic. I mean, OT has been there forever. It's just now we see more and more threats around it. What do you think about that OT evolving? Especially, I guess in Calgary, there's such because of oil and gas. Is there any more like buzzwording around that, or
I think we're starting to get this critical mass definitely of within the energy sector, especially in Calgary, that like this is critical. In regular IT, if something's ransomed, if a system is down, it's bad because from the aspect of people's personal information is potentially breached or things like that. But when you get into the cyber physical with the OT, that's where the rubber really hits the road. If something happens at a well site, or some water goes down or whatever it may be, I think people are finally starting to understand that this is critical. And so I think the aspect of it is that there's a lot of there's a lot of potential with either antiquated systems or fairly simplistic architectures in place just to get the job done previously. That I think as the community kind of comes together more around this, and what we're seeing is that definitely there's a lot more interest in how do I secure this, how do I build out build out my own test rig that because I don't have money for $1 million,
Hmm.
test rig or development environment, right? That sort of thing. So,
Yep.
it's trying to do like, how do we do this on a budget? How do we do it effectively? And how do we do it so that it matters, really?
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true. James, time is flying. One, let's say, last question and or information for the people listening. When is B-Side Calgary? Who's going to be there, and why should we go there?
Yeah, so it's May 1st and 2nd up at Bow Valley College in Calgary, Alberta. Pretty much we're having everyone from students through CISOs, from practitioners through people that are in business side of things. So basically, we like to see everyone in the community there. We want to be a nexus point for that. It's an amazing event, and we're looking to seeing we said 900 people. We want to see everybody there to be able to just grow that community, have that support there, and see this kind of community just continue to blossom.
Well, that's great. And it was a great pleasure to discuss with you today, James. And hopefully, we'll have a revenge discussion where you can be sitting on the red couch here in Quebec if ever you come by, and or we'll see each other in Calgary eventually.
That sounds great. Looking
Thank
forward
you
to
very
it.
much. Have a good one.
You too.